Good morning. How are you all today? Thank you all for visiting with us and welcome to Bible class with Andre and Betty. We're continuing our studies from the book of 1 Kings. Today we're in chapter 8, but we're going to make this a two-part message. Today we'll do from 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 1 through verse 30. And our subject is God's glory appears. And when God's glory appears, that means that they are in the presence of the Lord. And so as we look at this, we're going to be looking at the glory being brought into the temple, denoting God's approval of the temple, because God's glory can show up at his approval or at his disapproval. And he shows up in a glory cloud. And then we'll see the beginning parts of Solomon's sermon and the beginning of his prayer. And then next time we will finish the chapter 8 of 1 Kings chapter 8. So today we're looking at the glory of the Lord appears. And chapter 8, verse 1. Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel after the temple was finished, and he had brought in all the things that his father David had dedicated. Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes, the chief of the fathers of the children of Israel, unto King Solomon in Jerusalem. So they came to Jerusalem. The reason that they might bring up the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of the city of David, which is Zion. So the city of David was the spiritual side of Jerusalem, which is the political center of the nation Israel. Verse 2. And all the men of Israel assembled themselves unto King Solomon at the feast in the month Ethanim, which is the 7th month. And the 7th month of Jewish calendar would be October. Verse 3. And all the elders of Israel came, and the priest took up the ark. The priests were the only ones who could carry the ark, and the high priest could only go into the holiest of holies one time a year. And so the priests took up the ark. Verse 4. And they brought up the ark of the Lord and the tabernacle of the congregation, and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle, even those did the priests and the Levites bring up. So the ark and all these articles had been in the house of David after David went and got the ark from the house of Obed-Edom in 2 Samuel that we studied. So these things move forward. But he went to the house of David in Zion, got the tabernacle and all its furnishings and the ark, and brought them to the temple in verse 4. Verse 5. And King Solomon and all the congregation of Israel that were assembled unto him were with him before the ark, sacrificing sheep and oxen that could not be told nor numbered for multitude. It was so many they could not be counted. Verse 6, and the priests brought in the ark of the covenant of the Lord unto his place. That would be the Holy of Holies, and it's been heretofore called the oracle. So, reading verse 6 again, and the priests brought in the ark of the covenant of the Lord unto his place into the oracle of the house, to the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubims. The cherubims on top of the ark was the mercy seat. Verse 7, for the cherubim spread forth their two wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubims covered the ark, and the staves there are above, that is, above the ark. Verse 8, and they drew out the staves of the rods, that the ends of the staves were seen out in the holy place. That's the first part of the tabernacle. It was seen out in the holy place before the oracle, and they were not seen outside. And there they are unto this day. So in the temple there was the holy place that the priests went in often, daily, and then behind the curtain was the Holy of Holies, the holiest of all, and that's where the Ark of the Covenant and the mercy seat were located. And so the staves were put in the side of the ark so that they could carry the ark without touching it. And all of that is outlined in the book of Exodus, beginning at chapter 25 of Exodus. Verse 9, there was nothing in the ark except the 2 tables of stone which Moses put there at Horeb, or Mount Sinai, when the Lord made a covenant with the children of Israel when they came out of the land of Egypt. And that's the Mosaic covenant that the Lord made with Israel beginning in Exodus chapter 19, verse 10. And it came to pass, when the priests were come out of the holy place, that the cloud filled, the glory cloud, the presence of the Lord, that the cloud filled the house of the Lord, denoting God's approval. And so the glory cloud of God appears. And back to verse 9, the covenant that contained only the covenant that God had made with Israel were the 10 Commandments. And so the cloud filled the house of the Lord. Verse 11, so that the priest could not stand to minister or serve because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord had filled the house of the Lord. And that's called, in theological terms, the Shekinah glory of God. And so it filled the house, and the priest and the glory of God could not be in the same place. So the priest had to come out. And now Solomon is going to begin to talk to the people about what the temple means to God and to the people of Israel. Verse 12, Then spake Solomon, the Lord said that he would dwell in the thick darkness. In other words, no man can see God. But if we want to see God, we have to see Jesus manifest in the flesh is the God that represents who God is according to 1 Timothy 3:16 and also Hebrews 1:1 and really throughout the Bible. And so Solomon said that God would dwell in thick darkness. If any man would see God face to face, they would die. Verse 13. I have surely, Solomon says, built thee an house to dwell in, a settled place for thee to abide in forever. Before the temple was built, God moved from tent to tent to make his presence known in the cloud that followed Israel by day and the pillar of fire by night. And so now they're in a settled place, and Solomon has built the temple. Verse 14. And the king turned his face about and blessed all the congregation of Israel. And all the congregation of Israel stood. So while Solomon was speaking, they all stood up. Verse 15. And he said, Solomon said, Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which spake with his mouth unto David my father, and hath with his hand fulfilled it, saying, This is what the Lord said to David my father. Verse 16. Since the day that I brought forth my people Israel out of Egypt, I chose no city out of all the tribes of Israel to build an house, that my name might be there. But I chose David to be over my people Israel. Verse 17. Solomon says, And it was in the heart of David my father to build an house for the name of the Lord God of Israel. Verse 18. And the Lord said unto David my father, Whereas it was in thine heart to build an house unto my name, thou didst well that it was in thine heart. Nevertheless, verse 19, thou shalt not build the house, but thy son that shall come forth out of thy loins, he shall build the house unto my name. And this speaking of Solomon will build the temple, and in our studies he's already built the temple, and it took 7 years to build it. But David had a total of 19 sons, but God, out of all of his sons, God chose Solomon to follow after David and to build the temple. Verse 20. And the Lord hath performed his word that he spake, and I am risen up in the room or in the office of David my father, and sit on the throne of Israel, as the Lord promised, and have built an house for the name of the Lord God of Israel. Verse 21. And I have set there a place for the ark, wherein is the covenant of the Lord, which he made with our fathers, when he brought them out of the land of Egypt. And again, that begins in Exodus chapter 19. Now, Solomon is going to take the time to pray and to dedicate the temple to the Lord. So in verse 22, And Solomon stood before the altar of the Lord in the presence of all the congregation of Israel, and spread forth his hand towards heaven, and he will also bow down. Verse 23. And he said, Lord God of Israel, there is no God like thee in heaven above or on earth beneath, who keepeth covenant and mercy with thy servants that walk before thee with all their hearts. Who, verse 24, who has kept with thy servant David my father that thou promised him. Thou spakest also with thy mouth, and hast fulfilled it with thine hand, as it is this day. You told David his son would build the house, and I have done that. I did it because I was able to do it, because you have kept your word. Verse 25. Therefore now, Lord God of Israel, keep with thy servant David my father that thou promised him, saying, there shall not fail thee a man in my sight to sit on the throne of Israel, so that thy children take heed to their way, that they walk before me as thou hast walked before me. Now Israel will fail, they will reject the Lord, but Jesus is the son of David as portrayed in the genealogy of Jesus in Matthew 1:1. Jesus, the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Verse 26. And now, O God of Israel, let thy word, I pray thee, be verified, which thou spakest unto thy servant David my father. But will God indeed dwell on the earth? Pointing forward to Jesus. Behold, the heaven and heaven of heavens cannot contain thee. How much less this house that I have builded. Verse 28, yet have thou respect or regard unto the prayer of thy servant, and to his supplication, O Lord my God, to hearken unto the cry and to the prayer which thy servant prayeth before thee today. In my prayer, verse 29, that thine eyes may be open toward this house night and day, even toward the place of which thou hast said, my name shall be there, that thou mayest hearken unto the prayer which thy servant shall make toward this place. Talking about the temple. Verse 30, and hearken thou to the supplication of thy servant and of thy people Israel, when they shall pray toward this place or the temple, and hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, when thou hearest, forgive. When you hear our prayer, forgive us. And so now, because Jesus has finished the work of redemption, we can come boldly before the throne of grace, that we might obtain mercy and find grace to meet our every need. And so next time we'll be looking at the details of Solomon's prayer to God for the nation Israel. And we'll continue from there. So you all have a great day, and we'll pick up next week for the rest of this chapter, looking at God's glory appearing. Thank you.